always tell when a streak's going to come to an end. You win a couple of games, you probably shouldn't.
There are teams out there that could use that quality of playoff goaltending. All right, Ray, you ready to do this?
Yep, let's go.
Powered by Rib Media in partnership with TSN, it is Season 7 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, Tim Hortons. Hey, unpack your pride with Tim's Team Canada Olympic hockey cards. First ever of its kind, Olympic theme, Team Canada set. There's 180 cards featuring men's and women's stars, the legends, the duos, the gold medalists, of course. 3 cards per pack with chances to win one of 87, Sidney Crosby, and one of 29, Nate McKinnon signature cards. Tim gift cards, they're there. Thousands of free coffee and donut prizes as well. Only at Tim's, and you should collect them all. And look at that good-looking young man. If you're joining us on our YouTube channel, Frankie Corrado is kind enough to pinch hit here on the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. Ray Ferrero, by the way, Frankie, if you're not keeping in touch with everything that's going on here on the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, he's on a golf hiatus, which is fine. I mean, needing to recharge, so we appreciate you coming into and from the bullpen, because this is a big one. This is our Tim Hortons Olympic men's hockey preview show. That's what this one is. So we're going to get into a lot of stuff Olympic related, and we'll dive back into the National Hockey League as well. So you good for this one? You set? You ready to roll?
I'm good, buddy. Yeah, thanks for having me. I listen to the show often. I don't listen to every single show, but I have never seen the opening credits before. And there's some there's some nice pictures of you there. Young Dregs, hey, looking good. Yes. I love it.
Yeah. Chris Sabunia, Zuby, he dug deep into the vault for that one. Oh yeah. The part of that sequence, the intro, that it bugs me every show is there are teams out there that could use that level of playoff goaltending.
Hey,
sounds so ridiculous.
Hey, no kidding. Thanks. That's hard-hitting analysis.
I can mix that up, Dregs. I could find another hard-hitting clip and get it in there.
Zuby will join us a bit later in the podcast. He does every episode as we look back at the Tim's Hockey Challenge. Okay, in this Tim Hortons Olympic preview, men's hockey preview, I'm sure you've had plenty of time to assess and probably dissected what appears to be the line combinations and the D pairings. The D pairings, no real surprises there, I don't think. But let's have a look at the way we think Canada at least will start the tournament up front. And, John Cooper put Celebrini with McDavid and Tom Wilson. I mean, would the obvious surprise be that Wilson is top 3 player, let alone a top 6? I think most of us thought he'd probably fight his way into the mix and be a bottom 6 player. But how surprised were you to see him on the wing with Celebrini and McDavid?
You know what? Part of me was surprised, Dregs, but at the same time, I get it. I understand the whole Tom Wilson with Connor McDavid thing. Do you remember early in his career in Edmonton, they went out and they signed Milan Lucic because they wanted him to play with McDavid. And then there was a period of time where Zach Kassian was playing with McDavid. This philosophy of having a big, strong, physical force next to McDavid, this is not anything new. This is something that if it could work, boy, doesn't that clear up some space for him out there?
Yeah.
Right? And we know that maybe not against Switzerland or France or maybe even Czechia for that matter, but you're going to play the Americans at some point, you would have to think. Even the Swedes, time and space is at a premium. And this is the thing about Wilson, is he's good enough to make this team, not because he's Tom Wilson, the guy that runs around and just hits guys. He's Tom Wilson, the best player on the Washington Capitals this year. He's the driving force on that team. So he's capable of playing with McDavid, playing with Celebrini. I think it's very intriguing, but it's also, we have to keep this in mind, Dregs.
Yeah.
John Cooper with Tampa Bay shuffles his lines like crazy. I've called Tampa games before, okay? I've called the games, and I'm always trying to keep an eye out for is a coach making an adjustment to his lines. 10 minutes in, he'll shuffle things, and he'll throw Kucherov out there for an extra shift. That's what Tampa. They're a good NHL team. This is with the most weaponized hockey team maybe ever John Cooper's going to be moving these lines around a ton. I think he wants to get it out of the way and see what it looks like right off the bat.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to overlook what could be the second line. You get into those games of, okay, who's line 1, 2, 3. I mean, it doesn't matter. We know this. So the way it kind of puts together here is Marchand, McKinnon, Suzuki. But the line that I'm also equally intrigued by is Sidney Crosby centering Mark Stone and Mitch Marner. Again, not your third line, but you do have to put them in some semblance of order. And it looks weird when I see it on a graphic or I look at my sheet of paper and I see Sid up the middle on, again, quote unquote, the third line.
Okay, so basically what they're telling us is they're not going to take from a position of strength. Their three best centermen are McDavid, McKinnon, and Crosby. Are they
Mhm.
not?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're not going to put one of those guys on the wing and say that Nick Suzuki, you'll play center, or Macklin Celebrini, you'll play center. They've basically said, we're keeping our ace, our king, and our queen right down the middle, and you got to deal with it. And this is what happens now. Okay, so their first game is against Czechia. Czechia has two NHL defensemen on their team. It's
Yeah.
Radko Gudas and Filip Hronek. So now the third line hops over the boards, and it's Crosby, Marner, and Stone. Like, they're going to feast on these matchups, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what's going to happen. And other teams aren't going to be able to keep up with it. Even a hockey nation like Finland, or Czechia is a very good hockey nation. So
Yeah.
the depth is going to be crazy. The second line, if we want to call it that, with Suzuki on the wing, this is just like an anecdote from calling a lot of Habs games this year. He doesn't play wing. It's not something that he's accustomed to, but he's one of the better players in the NHL at like picking pucks off the yellow dasher,
Mm-hmm.
clean, barely touches his stick, and it's off quick.
Mm.
Now, I'm envisioning McKinnon's building all kinds of speed. He's flying up the ice. Suzuki, bang, bang, middle of the ice. McKinnon's gone. In theory, that's why I think that could make sense, and maybe that's what John Cooper sees, and that's why Suzuki, even though he's not a winger, probably makes a lot of sense to go to the wing because he has good wall board play already.
Yeah. All right. Well, then if we round out the forward group, you've got Hagel with Horvat and Reinhardt, and then that leaves Jarvis and Bennett as the extras. But to your original point with John Cooper and the coaching staff, I don't think we read too much into any of it yet, right? Like, let them play a couple of games maybe, and that includes where Sam Bennett is going to fit into the equation and what that might look like. Are there going to be penalties? The special teams factor, who's killing penalties, all of that. So I think we, as a hockey media culture, get fixated when you look down at that collection of names. You go, ooh, okay, well, that's intriguing. That's interesting. How's this guy going to slot in? All of that. I mean, it's just, it's a rock star lineup from top to bottom up front.
Yeah, there's not a lot of room for, like, there's just not a lot of room. And I think we're going to see a lot of moving parts. We're going to see a lot of interchanging. And keep in mind, like Canada, if you watch the Edmonton Oilers play, you're very aware that anytime Chris Knobloch needs a goal or he needs a push, Draisaitl and McDavid go together. Like, John Cooper has that times 10 right now on his roster. Like, he has a number of different nuclear codes he can go to here and say, I want McKinnon and McDavid together, or I want Crosby and McDavid. Like, he's got all these different things he can do, not to mention like the way he can spread his defensive forwards out here. Like, you can have Stone, Reinhardt, Marner, and then your other, like, you can have a good shutdown guy on every single line, so you always feel like you're fine, you're safe, and it's very trustworthy out there.
Take us down your path on defense. You've got Taves, Makar, Morrissey, Parayko, Harley, Doughty, Theodore, Sanheim. Again, top to bottom, loaded with talent. Do you expect that's the way, provided everybody stays healthy? Are those the pairings that you would run through?
Probably to start, yes. The one that maybe I would have envisioned is having Theodore playing with Doughty, and then maybe having your fourth pair of Sanheim and Harley. Just I don't know, like it. There's not There's not a ton of reasoning behind it other than Shea Theodore is a more seasoned player, and he
Mhm.
handles a lot right now for Vegas. Like, Shea Theodore is handling more than he ever has had to. So, him and Doughty together can be someone you can lean on. Go put out a fire for us, right? Like,
Yeah.
we need you to get this puck out or whatever the case may be. The thing that I'm interested with this decor is on the right side of the ice after Cale Makar, where do the minutes go? Like,
Mm.
where do the lion's share of those minutes get allocated, and what do the matchups look like after that? Because we can figure out what Makar and Taves are going to be, but
Mhm.
whether it's Parayko or Doughty or Sanheim playing his offside, where does that all shake out? Because it's not super clear the way
Yeah.
you can picture things up front. I think there's a little that leaves like little that needs to be determined still.
Yeah, so, again, aside from the big boys, and respectively, any of that group on their NHL club, I mean, these are star players.
Mhm.
Again, throughout the lineup, that's pretty clear. Um, which one of that group of defensemen do you think has the most upside to surprise? If that makes sense. I mean, if Cale Makar has an outstanding Olympic Games, nobody is going to be surprised.
No,
And you could probably say that about the group in general. But is there one in this conversation? I'm curious. I think that this guy has an opportunity here to pop.
you know which one I think of? We're thinking about defensemen, and we're thinking about I am anyways about
Yep.
puck moving, offensive ability, like getting up in the play. Which all these guys are mobile. They're all
Yeah.
superstars.
Yeah.
You touched on it, but I'm thinking of a guy who's going to dig in and just be gritty and just say, "This is what I'm bringing to the table. I'm going to block
Mm,
shots. I'm going to
yeah.
be an animal in the corners." And I kind of think that like Drew Doughty gets that. Like, I think right, like, okay, it hasn't been an overly productive season by Drew Doughty's standards the last little while, but on this team, everyone needs to find a role and a
Yep.
purpose, and I can see him embodying that, like, 12 years later from Sochi, 16 years later from Vancouver, it's a different version of Drew Doughty, and we're gonna
Yeah.
say, "That guy was so dug in, and he wanted to be the grittiest guy on that back end, and they needed something like that." That's that's the one that I think might I don't know if it's catch people by surprise, but we might be
Yeah.
talking about once we get into, like, the quarterfinals and the more meat and potatoes of the tournament.
All right, we're going to get into our Canadian Brewhouse headlines here in just a minute. I do sense, and I can appreciate John Cooper has basically had enough of the goaltending theme. The continued pestering. Is it Bennington? Is it Kemper? Is it Logan Thompson? All of that. I mean, but it's what we do. Those are fair questions to ask, especially given the year that Jordan Bennington and the St. Louis Blues have had. So, I mean, where are you with this now? I've been in the camp since they named the goalies to the main roster when we were in Minnesota that Jordan Bennington would get at least a game to start. It's his net to lose, despite the fact that his numbers are terrible in the NHL, playing in front of a team that is wildly disappointing this year. So, are you on that side, or would you just cut to the chase and get to either Logan Thompson or Darcy Kemper right off the hop?
I'm on your side of thinking about this, and I'll tell you why. The schedule that Team Canada has been given in this tournament lends
Yeah,
itself to that way of thinking because you get
yeah,
Czechia game 1. Switzerland is gonna be a good test for sure. France, we know what France is. They're gonna be in tough. But the fact that you get Czechia right away, you should know exactly what you need to know about Jordan Binnington. You're not dipping your toe into the tournament. You're playing against
right.
a hockey nation that has David Pasternak and Martin Necas and some good players. So if it goes well for Binnington in game 1 against Czechia, if you thought that he was going to be mentally dialed in and sharp and have that like short tournament killer instinct, then it just reaffirms that and you're
Yeah.
okay and you feel like he's in the right spot. If it doesn't go well, like if Canada gives up, you know, 16 shots and 3 or 4 go in, okay. then you're making contingency plans and you're saying, okay, Logan Thompson or Darcy Kemper, whatever your coach's gut
Sure.
is telling you, you got to start the game against Switzerland and let's see how you can roll the rest of the way. But I think that game one being against Czechia, it gives you a revealing moment to see where this guy is at, because it's an interesting one, man. By goal saved
Yep.
above expected, he's last in the NHL. On any other team, he's not making that team.
Correct.
But because of what he did last year and the trust that John Cooper has with him, he should get game one. And I think it'll tell you exactly where he's at.
Yeah, and we'll move on from this. But from a player perspective, nobody in that Team Canada dressing room is looking at their goaltending and going, geez, I hope he starts, or I hope he starts, or I hope he starts. That's not the way they're wired, right? If it's Bennington, they'll be thinking about what he did at the Four Nations, right? They're not worried about what he did in a St. Louis Blues uniform. They know the competitor that he is, Logan Thompson is, or Darcy Kemper might be, wearing that Team Canada sweater.
Yeah. That's the thing that, like, players, Dregs, can feed off energies. You can
Yeah.
tell when a guy's an alpha. You can tell when a guy is a little shy walking around,
Yeah.
right? Like, I kind of learned that. I learned that later in my career, and honestly, a little too late. Because when you're a young guy and you're just trying to make a name for yourself, you walk quiet. You don't want to ruffle any feathers. You don't want to really be noticed. But at the same time, man, if you walk around like a little bit, just in the right way, not cocky, but confident,
Yeah.
with your chest puffed out a little bit, guys get like this guy's for real. Like, he knows what he's doing. And that just gives everyone a little more confidence. And Jordan Binnington, I can assure you, will be walking around that way. He will be walking
So,
around like he is a
yeah.
big deal, and he should be.
Yeah. So you would have contended for a Norris Trophy if you'd have just had a little bit more swagger in your game. Is that what you're saying?
No, I would have contended for a regular spot in the lineup, not a Norris
Okay.
Trophy.
I mean, that's all fair. All right, we're going to continue the Olympic talk, but we'll get into some NHL stuff as well in headlines. Brought to you by the Canadian Brewhouse. Hockey lives at the Canadian Brewhouse. You can catch every game with their beer specials, game day prizes, so much more, all at the best hockey house in town. You can see in store or at thecanadianbrewhouse.com for details on what your local brewhouse is up to this hockey season. Frankie Corrado is joining us this week on the Rain Dregs Hockey Podcast, and I said we'd continue with the Olympic theme here. We dissected Team Canada's lines, what we think the combinations are going to look like, goaltending, defensive pairings, all of that right off top of the episode, Frankie. But I know you wanted to talk about something that seemed to gather a headline. Not seemed to, it did. The fact that John Cooper and Team Canada closed their practice on Monday, the excuse was that, okay, we practiced in a small arena and it's a condensed environment. They didn't want any of the distractions. So, all right, no media. You can't come in. You can't watch. They're not the only team to do it. I think the Americans have somewhat used it as a public relations advantage. Oh, no, we're not going to close our practices. For me, sitting on my couch, watching from afar, my reaction was, this is much ado about nothing. But I've also been in those international events as a media member, Frankie, and you have too, where you're like, man, I just want to go to practice and do my job. I just want to see what's happening out there. Maybe I spot something that I need to talk about, to do my job. So I do appreciate what Rashog and Mark Masters and Pierre LeBrun were doing, and the other media members, and reporting on this. But what was your first reaction when you learned that Canada had closed its practice?
My first reaction was your reaction. Okay, guys, it's not a big deal. But then, out of respect for our colleagues, they flew halfway around the world to cover things like this. Okay, so I can understand their frustration. But that is secondary to what Team Canada would be thinking. And you talked about that practice arena. That practice arena is reminiscent of like an outdoor rink somewhere between Whitby and Vaughan that they just put a little tin roof over. Like, it's a makeshift little
It
thing.
is. Yeah.
Okay. And there's no room for people in there. And quite honestly, like, if you're Team Canada, you probably want to have one quiet practice where you can get a lot of systems work done. You can do a
Yeah.
lot of teaching. You can stop it. You can start it. And the coach doesn't have to yell over
Yeah.
all the ambient noise that's going on. In everything about this tournament, Dregs, it's loud, it's noisy,
Yep.
it's all hands on deck, right? Like we're doing three person hits there with Rashog, LeBron, and Masters. Like it's all hands on deck. I think for Team Canada, they didn't do anything wrong. They're allowed to do this. They said,
Yeah.
let's have at least one quiet one here, and we'll have our business practice, and we'll see how the rest of everything goes from there.
Yeah.
I don't have an issue with it. The other thing I will say is, and respectfully, of course, a lot of the writers will go to practice and they can tell you what the lines are. And they can tell you that Crosby and McKinnon were, doing a drill after practice and Celebrini was tipping pucks with Crosby or whatever. And those are great for
Yeah.
storylines and you need to have that type of stuff. But they're not going to be able to tell you that, in the D zone, when the puck switches sides behind the net, there's going to be a winger and a centerman exchange. And that's what John Cooper's focusing on. Or what's the handoff of players in the neutral zone, like all these inside hockey things.
Yeah.
So if they get the lines, if they get the storylines, you're still able to do your job to a certain degree. So
Yeah.
I'm okay with Team Canada doing what they did.
Yeah, me too. And again, we don't have to pile on here, but I think that there's a strong social media theme to this as well. And your point is well made on, okay, you might see something that, the seasoned hockey reporter just overlooks for whatever reason. He just overlooks. But, John Cooper isn't going to blow his stack, in a practice on Team Canada. He's not. But, what if he says something? What if in a tight venue like that, he says something, or, Sidney Crosby says something, or Nate McKinnon slams his stick against the boards because he's pissed off. And so, that instantly is clipped, and we're chewing on that for the next 3 days. So I don't advocate for it. I understand it. And even Ryan Rashog, back and forth with him earlier today, he goes, look, we had to identify it. We had to talk about it, which is true. It was a made story by decision by Hockey Canada, Team Canada. But everybody moves on now, and that's why you need the games to start getting played.
Yes, and
so that we don't have to deal with this stuff.
And just so like it's out there, like Team Canada's next practice is not going to be closed. Like Rashog tweeted that out. So the way I see it is they were at that small rink. They got their business practice done and out of the way, and now the next one's open. So we'll see how that progresses.
All right, let's move back into the National Hockey League. Charlie McAvoy created some noise for the National Hockey League Department of Player Safety by posting that split screen of first the video of Sandis Vilmanis hitting him up high. And then a close-up photo was the other half of the split screen of McAvoy's swollen face. And I shouldn't even chuckle because it's not funny. I mean, he's coming off a serious injury. No major penalty, no supplemental discipline on that play. And that was obviously in response to there being no suspension for Vilmanis. So where do you want to go with this? I mean, is this a miss by the Department of Player Safety to not follow up? If the officials, I don't understand why a major wasn't called, to be fair. They call those things all the time, and then they review them, and they either uphold it or they rescind or they reduce it. It doesn't matter. Right. But that's the purpose of the Department of Player Safety, is to be able to dip back into the video after games and go, yep, that was a clean shot to the head. And so where are you generally speaking? I mean, obviously, Charlie McAvoy did not approve, and whether it was a direct shot at Dops or not, he wanted his message, at least visually out there.
I got a lot of respect for Charlie McAvoy laying that out there publicly. That's not an easy thing to do. Like, that there's going to be some noise attached to that, and maybe there's a phone call coming your way or a fine. Who knows? But he was clearly upset about it. Where I stand on this is I think the league has to do a better job of protecting the heads of players. Now,
Mm.
at the same time, we have to keep this in mind. Head contact is not illegal in the NHL, right? Like if I hit
Correct.
you,
Yeah.
Greg's, if I hit you and I go right through your body, but your head gets hit, that's not illegal. But
No.
if I pick your head and I don't get your body, that is illegal. And that is what we tend to see get supplemental discipline. Where I think we where I think there's a gray area that is confusing people right now is that when a hit is made and a lot of it is through the body, but the head is the initial point of contact, that's when we're not necessarily getting the suspension, supplemental discipline, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's where they need to do a better job of making it more black and white, but it's a world where it's hard to make it black and white.
Yeah.
And like
I'm going to make a prediction, though. I'm going to make a
make a
prediction
prediction.
because I cover the NHL general managers meetings in March on an annual basis and have for a long, long time. And that's the meeting where, whether it's hockey operations, Department of Player Safety, it doesn't matter. They will roll out, probably a dozen of the most egregious plays that warranted the most negative attention, right? And then they will show that video individually to all of the assembled general managers and hockey types in that meeting, right? And they'll go, okay, well, let's vote on each one. Suspendable, not suspendable. I'm dumbing it down.
Yeah.
It's more complicated than that. But then they'll bring the media in and they'll set us up, which is a great exercise. And it's a fun thing
Right.
to sit through because you're sitting in that big boardroom and you're seeing the exact videos clippings that the managers have just looked at and then voted on, right?
Mhm.
Now, the vote doesn't matter other than either the managers are on side of officiating hockey operations and the Department of Player Safety, or they're not. In almost 99 times out of 100, the general managers, vast majority are on side with how the game is called, and then ultimately how the game is policed by George Peros.
Right.
It's incredible. So I always, when there's, and I don't know, to me that was a suspendable hit by Vilmanis. It was. To me, it was. Okay. But I guarantee you they're going to have that spooled up in March, and the manager's going to go, nope, nothing to see here. It's all good. We eliminate that hit. We're going to be suspending players left, right, and center, which takes me back to your original point of saying the league has to do a better job of eradicating this sort of thing. But Frankie, it starts with the general managers in that March meeting.
You're right.
I want to go to that meeting, and I want 17 of the 32 men in that room to go, nope, can't have that. That's a suspendable play. Because at that point, then the commissioner will say to Colin Campbell and to George Peros and Stephen Walken, the heads of their departments, okay, this is the marching orders from our general managers. Here's what we need. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I guarantee you they'll talk about it. So we want to blame people. Unfortunately, we got to blame the GMs because they do have the power to change this stuff.
They do. They do. And I remember when I first broke into the league and Shanny was running the Department of Player Safety, he was cracking the whip, right? And maybe there was more of an appetite back then to have these lengthier suspensions, and teams don't want their marquee guys out for longer periods of times because they're running a business and they have to sell tickets, and everyone's everyone's on the same page. But with all that being said, then they have to make sure the players get it as well.
Yeah.
And that's their, if they're not going to change how they police it or their philosophy on it, then just make sure the players know exactly what's going on so they can protect themselves in the best way, right? Because a little bit, no, I'm not going to say it in this situation, the McAvoy situation, but we definitely are seeing an era of players that didn't grow up with like the super robust physical game that like guys are putting themselves in vulnerable positions, right? So let's do our best to make sure the players know what's happening.
Speaking of players, I do want to get your thoughts on your experience between the benches last Thursday in Philadelphia for the Sens and the Flyers. But hey, I mean, the Toronto Maple Leafs always generate a ton of buzz and interest internationally, not just in the GTA, right? There's always a Leafs rumor. and every other day there's a Leafs rumor. So why would this day be any different? But I want your perspective because, look, I mean, you can look at their pending unrestricted free agent guys and, McMahon and Lawton, go down the list. And we can build a case that Toronto definitely should be in retool, if not into that full renovation sort of conversation. And they are in that conversation. But I keep reading, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, he'd be a good fit here, there. I mean, he's their best player. Now, are you on side with, okay, the decision should have already been made by management. We're selling off our assets here, and we are going to embrace a retool, if that's the right word. Or do you look at it and go, okay, we're 6 points back. We're 6 points out of a wild card spot. We have, I think, 6 games, right, between the end of the Olympics and the March 6th trade deadline. Hey, what if we go 4-2? What if we run the table and go 6-0 and we get some help from the teams above us in the Eastern Conference standings? We're right back in the thicket. That's the mindset of Craig Berube and the players. This, right? Yeah. But you're a realist and you can appreciate how difficult it is to do what Toronto has to do. I just think that it's more likely than not that Keith Pelley and ownership are saying, now we're in this thing because the playoff revenue matters. We're in this thing until noon on March 6th. And then if noon were out, then Brad, you've got to make a flurry of trades.
And he has about 3 hours to do it. Right?
Yes, exactly.
Here's the thing, okay? If we talk about a rebuild and a retool, if we were to talk about a rebuild, okay, Dregs, let's say you were building a house and halfway through the project, your construction manager comes to you and he says, Dregs, foundation's messed up. We got to rebuild this thing, okay? You're not in a retool at that point. You have to build it back from the foundation. Now, for the Toronto Maple Leafs, they fall into the category where I think they can retool it. I don't think the foundation is broken there. I'm sorry. The foundation can't be broken when you have a guy who's a few years removed from scoring 69 goals and one of the best wingers in the NHL in William Nylander. You have a pretty promising young goalie in Joseph Wall who can be good. Like, Easton Cowan could be a good player for you at some point. For me, the foundation's not broken there, but you do need some more tools around it. You got to do the trim. You got to paint the siding of the house. You got to do all these things, right? But the foundation's not broken. And so where does that leave the Toronto Maple Leafs? That leaves them with a bit of a heavy lift, for me anyways. And it's funny you bring up OEL, okay? So he's got $3.5 million on his ticket, and he's got 2 years after this one.
Yeah.
What Toronto needs to do is evaluate, what does OEL bring us back so that next year we can repaint the garage? Or what does Scott Lawton bring us back so that next year we can do the porch and build this house up exactly the way we want to do it? And if you get the sense that you can get pieces back that help you next year, sort of like how Washington did it a few years ago.
Yeah.
Remember when they barely snuck into the playoffs, worst goal differential ever to get into the playoffs, and then they were gangbusters last year. And they made a couple moves like PLD and Mangiapane and Jacob Chikrin, and that changed their team. Like, that's where I see Toronto being. Not you got to tear it down to the studs. That's crazy talk. But they have to be real with where they're at. And if they can bring pieces back that set them up for success next year, then you make the moves now and you start.
Where are you with Ben Danford? And you did a ton of hockey at the World Junior Championship. And I'm always careful trying to assess, analyze, and then predict where players are going to fit at an NHL level when they maybe haven't had the greatest World Junior experience, right? And what comes to mind is Matty Potter, who's playing now in the American League. He's a Boston Bruins prospect, right? He went over to Sweden a couple of years back with a bad shoulder. He shouldn't have played. He goes and plays for his country, couldn't play the game that he would have normally played had he been healthy. Anyway, he comes back, he has surgery, and now he's making his way back into the NHL conversation. Have you seen enough of Ben Danford in playing in the Ontario Hockey League and what you saw at the World Juniors in Minnesota to go, if there's a piece out there that Toronto can acquire that helps them now, I mean, that's all they've got, Frankie. That's all they've got. They've got Danford. They're not going to trade Easton Cowan. They don't really have any meaningful picks anymore. I mean, there's always a pick here or there. Maybe there's some other prospects, B prospects, C prospects that you could add as sweeteners. But is it too dangerous to trade Ben Danford at this point, given the predicament of the Toronto Maple Leafs and the fact that Brad Treliving, frankly, can't miss on a player like that?
See, as of today, if I'm Toronto, I'm not trading Ben Danford for help this year. I would explore that opportunity if it's someone who's A, young, and B, cost control with term, or I have team control over him. I'm not doing it for an all or nothing, like just to say we can't give up on this year. Because like, I don't know how you feel. I've actually never asked you about this, but like for me, analytics tell us a story of what's going on. It's hard to it's hard to use it for what's going to happen sometimes because things can change. But if I look at the Toronto analytics, it does tell us a story that they are where they are for a reason. It's not like they've underachieved or they've been hard done by. This is kind of where they are as a team, and it's where they're supposed to be. So, and the Ben Danford thing is interesting because he's a harder player to figure out at the NHL level. Easton Cowan, you could figure out, big point producer, put him with offensive players. At some point, it clicks in the NHL. This is a guy who projects to be some kind of Chris Tanev type if all goes well, right? Like that means he's going to have to really find his niche in the league. That means some trial and error. That means some rough games. That means a longer runway to really see what he is. So, you can do it, and I wouldn't have a problem if they did it, but it has to be something with legs on the back end, not something that just, hey, we had him for a year and we lost out on what could be a good defenseman for us. You know?
Yeah. No, I do. And again, though, those are the conversations that they're having. And you're doing that if you're Brad Treliving in concert with, you're not giving away a piece like that. You can't. But if somebody is calling and continually calls and you get the feeling that there might be something that you can work around that helps you short-term and long-term, I just think that the organization is in a position where all of that, everything has to be on the table and needs to be considered. All right. Before we wrap up the Canadian Brewhouse headlines, I teased your experience between the benches, Gord Miller calling the game, the Sens and the Philadelphia Flyers. First of all, how was it? And then it's Philadelphia, so you can at times be in toxic territory when you're in Philly. And we know there's been a lot of noise, a lot of stuff happening around Matvei Mishkov and Rick Tocchet and the Flyers in general. So did you get a taste of all of that while you were there?
Big time. Yeah. It was a horrible game, to be honest with you. Like there was nothing happening, and it literally was the kind of game you would expect right before the Olympic break. We're both like, and it was an important game for Ottawa because they're now 6 points back of Boston for the last wild card spot instead of being 8. So that was huge for them. But like Mike Marshall was producing the game, and I'm talking to him on talkback. I'm like, we got any replays? Like, what are we doing? And like, what do you want to do? Intermission pack, or just we're trying to grab at anything we possibly can. It was one of those nights, but it was cool being back between the benches. You forget how quickly everything develops, right? When you're down there, and it's a different vantage point. And you're right in the action. So I totally understand why Ray and MJ and Noodles in Ottawa, like why they do it. You're in it and you feel it. It's funny though, the Michkov thing is very big over there. Hey, like that's created huge. A big buzz in Philadelphia.
Is it? But are you hearing it between the benches? And I mean, it was the storyline going in. So one of the advantages you have as an on ice analyst is you're hearing everything. you're hearing the players, you're hearing the coaches, you're hearing the fans behind you. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't want you to pull
No,
the
it
curtain
helps you though.
entirely back,
Okay.
but
So here's the Mitchkov thing, okay? They want him to play more. His ice time is down 2 minutes from last year. Last year he was in the 16s. This year he's in the 14s. His pace for points per game, goals, all that, it's all down. Matvei Mitchkov came into camp out of shape this year. They have admitted it, like it's been out there. So what do you do from here on out now? Well, he's got to jump on a moving train that is the NHL, where as the season goes on,
yeah,
guys are getting more and more fit, like more and more
yeah,
hockey shape. And now, so guys are making birdies, -1, -2, -3. They're playing great games. This guy's just trying to get to even par, right? Like
yeah,
he's got to get to even par. By the time he gets to even par, guys are on the back nine
yeah. It's
and
over.
they're already looking at the 18th green. Okay, so he's fighting an uphill battle, and first period, like 3 shifts into the game, he throws a backhander, tries to sauce it right at the offensive blue line, gets picked off, and I'm like, that's the kind of stuff that they want to take out of your game. So,
Yeah,
okay, let's say he hasn't held up his end of the bargain. At the same time, I think very highly of Danny Briere, Keith Jones, Rick Tocchet. I think they're phenomenal. Okay.
mhm,
There's no sense in beating the dead horse anymore.
right.
Just build him up now. It's happened. He came
Yeah,
into camp out of shape. He's not having a great year. Now it's just time to build him up. Build
yeah,
just you got to do it. You got to build up his confidence. You crack the whip enough, right? And now that's what needs to take place. And this is going to be coming out of this Olympic break will tell us if the player has learned or not,
yeah,
because it's a reset in the NHL season. So everyone's off, everyone comes back in. Who hits the ground running? Who had a few two margaritas in Cancun? And who was like in the gym getting ready for a big second half? There
yeah,
is no excuse now. Everyone stalled. Everyone stopped. There's no excuse for him to have a slow first couple games coming out of this break. He should be gangbusters because everyone has slowed down to his pace right now. So
yeah.
we'll see what it looks like coming out.
What? Yeah, what do you think that is going to look like across the league? I mean, are the Olympians going to come back gassed? Are guys going to be refreshed, or is it going to be like a full reset? And there's going to be a lag, and it's good. We can all look at the standings and recognize what teams are in the juice and what teams can't afford to have a sluggish start. But is that going to be the reality, or is it going to be hair on fire hockey from game one of finishing off the regular season?
This is a good exercise that I feel like our old boss Steve Dryden would put us up to maybe.
Yeah.
Like go back to the 2014 season. So 2013, 2014 season and go on NHL.com and see which teams after the Olympic break played really well, and then see how many Olympians they had on that team, and look at the teams
Mhm.
that didn't play well, and see how
Yeah.
I might do that. I might do that at some point when I have some time. But my guess is this: teams that had a lot of players at the Olympics, they're going to have to manage workloads, and they're going to have to find like a little
Oh,
rest
yeah.
guys. That's just the reality. Guys travel to Milan, they're practicing every day, they're playing games, and they got to travel back. Like, and everyone else is 4 or 5 days away, 4 or 5 days in the gym, and then the rest ramping up and getting back on the ice. Like, as far
Yeah.
as getting yourself ready, the guys who are not at the Olympics will have a pretty big advantage. The thing that you fear is that if you're a guy that went to the Olympics and you felt pretty good, and then you come back and you go right into it,
Mhm.
do you have that in April? Like, are you still at that level in April? Can you sustain it that way? Or are you better
Right.
off taking your foot off the gas a little bit at the beginning of March and then kind of ramping up from there?
Yeah.
It's going to be fascinating. Like you would know better than me. Don't you think we're going to see a couple players probably get shut down after this thing?
I
I
would
think there's
think
got to
so.
be some guys that are struggling.
Some load management for sure. For sure, that's coming. All right. Those are your headlines. Thank you to the Canadian Brew House. Tim Hortons Hockey Challenge is upon us, and we're going to bring in Chris Sabunia. Zuby joins us every single episode to update us on what is going on with the Tim Hortons Hockey Challenge. And obviously, the NHL is on a bit of a break. And Frankie, we've got to bring you into the mix here because it's Zuby, it's me, it's Ray Ferraro, it's Ryan Rashog, and Randine Rashog participates as well. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, you got to pick who you think is going to score the night ahead. You can do it 7 days a week if you want. Ray and I participate Tuesdays and Thursdays just for purposes of the podcast. I got off to a blazing start, and it might be enough to carry me through, Zuby. But post Olympic break, I need a couple of heaters to get me really back into control.
You had a lead of, I think it might have been 9 at one point in time, and it shrunk. That lead has shrunken. You're still in first. You got 32 for 90 out of 90 possible. You could have got right 825 points. Ray has closed. You've given some opportunity here recently, and Ray's closed the gap a little bit. He's 27 for 90, 650 points. So he's only 5 behind you. Shager has not, even with Randine, we took as Shager left over for Milan earlier than we were still going here. We gave Randine, because she's the whiz at it, we gave her an opportunity to count for Shager's picks. She didn't come through on the opportunity either. Shager's 17 for 90, so he's 15 back of you. I mean, almost double Dregs. He's got 375 points. I've got 98 total correct as I play every day with the Ray and Dregs account, hitting at about a 28% clip. So here's a couple of questions. So I just checked. We did 76 episodes last season. Last episode was 38. So the exact, if we end up with the same number of episodes, it may vary a tiny bit. We're exactly at the halfway point for the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. So two questions. Can Shager make up 15? He's only got 17 right in the first half of the season. Can he make up 15 on you, Dregs? And here's the sub question. Can we get Frankie to join now, and can he catch Rashog? That would be the question I want to know. Would it be possible for him to make up 17?
Well, but Frankie could only participate Tuesdays and Thursdays. Correct?
That's
right? Because otherwise it'd be unfair for Ryan. I don't know, Frankie. You got to download the app, and then it literally is that simple. You play, there's 3 boxes come up. You've got how many players in each box? It'd be 10, 12, something like that.
Yeah, it varies, I think, night to night even. But yeah, you've got a number of guys to choose from.
Yeah, so you pick 3 players total. You hit submit, and if those players score, you're in. It doesn't happen very often. We've each independently. Well, Zuby and I have had 3 for 3s. I think Randine has had 3 for 3s.
She has, yeah.
But I don't believe Ray or Ryan have. So that is an excellent exercise for Frankie Corrado. So you're in, Frankie?
You got me. I'm in. Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm going to download the app.
I'll remind you. I'll send you a text. Every Tuesday, Thursday, I'll remind you, hey, get your picks in. See, that's Zuby. That's why you're not just the operator / B producer here.
I thought you were going to say eye candy.
Brains behind this operation.
I thought you were going to say eye candy, Dregs.
That's true too. All right, Zuby. Thanks, brother.
Both.
Chris Sabunia, the Tim's Hockey Challenge. I don't know. We're going to try and set up a second podcast episode this week, Frankie. You and I, Zuby will jump in again. We've got some scheduling snarls that we'll have to wrestle with, so we're not going to pinpoint which day. We're recording this episode Tuesday morning, but we always do a segment. It's called Ask Ray and Dregs Anything, and normally we do it on Thursday or Friday whenever we record the episode. So in this case, it'll be Ask Frankie and Dregs Anything, and Zuby will fire off some mail. We get mail here on the podcast. It's submitted by the website. Sometimes it's DMs on X or on Instagram. Yeah, we're very social media savvy podcast. Aside from booking the episode, what's the rest of your week looking like? Busy? What do you got going on?
It's a lot of Sports Center, a lot of day shift Sports Center. Nice. What else do we got going on? Yeah, just my normal hits. And you know what? just being home. It's 20 straight days that I get to be at home. Like everyone's
Oh.
feeling the effects of the condensed season. So it's just
Yeah.
nice to kind of be here, catch up on some stuff. Selling my house. If anyone wants to buy my house, it's for sale. I don't know if anyone wants to move to
Is there a
Woodbridge.
website? Is there a realtor?
Yeah.
Let's
Send
do
me
name drop.
a DM if you're interested in my house, and I'll send you the listing. How about that?
That's outstanding. And my understanding is you've already purchased a house. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. So we got
I
some
shouldn't have
time.
said that. Yeah, because
No,
now you're a leverage disadvantage.
Don't weaken
now.
his bargaining position.
Yes,
Yes, gosh.
No, it's okay. We got some time. We kind of were proactive with it, so we got some time.
for
But
you.
that's all I got going on. Sports Center hits, normal
Nice.
kind of radio podcast hits, and selling a staged house with 2 young kids that run around into sharp corners all the time.
That is a chore, a challenge, and everything else. But your scheduling is fantastic. Obviously, you pinpointed the Olympic break to get all of this done. So
Yeah.
you're a man who's on top of it. All right, Frankie. Well, we hold on a second here, but we appreciate you joining us, and we'll try and get things figured out for the next episode of Ray and Dregs as long as you're available. Does that work for
All right,
you?
buddy. Yeah, all right, buddy. Thanks for having me. We'll talk soon.
Yep. You bet. Thank you to our sponsors who continue to support the Rain Dregs podcast. Tim Hortons, our title sponsor. Thank you. And thank you to the Canadian Brew House. Until next time, stay safe, everybody.